Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today as I talk to a real life heroine, Geri Vistein, who is so kind to take a moment to share her heroine's journey with me, which I know, I'm sure of it, that it will amaze you as it has amazed me. She is such a powerful advocate for, we'll talk about this in a minute, but a member of wildlife that really doesn't get much advocacy. So I've told her, as long as I've known her, that I so admire her courage. And so, Geri, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to share your heroine's journey with us. And so I do this with people, and I always remind the people watching that any heroine's or hero's journey starts with a call. And it's a call to adventure. It might not seem like an adventure, the type of adventure that you're accustomed to hearing about. It might seem like calamity or craziness, but it's a call to get you to make a change. And I know that you grew up in Ohio and life was going on for you, and then you got a call, and I wonder if you could start us off by telling us what your call was.
Well, it's a long, convoluted journey that we cannot get into completely here, but I will tell you that, and I think this happens for many people, my call, the initial, happened when I was 12 years old. I was a 12-year-old girl. And I remember, you remember certain things in your life. I remember as a 12-year-old girl, I had told myself that I am going to do something very special for this planet Earth during my lifetime. And I don't know what it is, but I am going to do it. That was the call that came from somewhere very special. And I don't know where, but it was very strong.
You're right. Don't know where calls come from. And it's interesting that you remind me to tell everybody that, yes, we get many calls in our life, that
yes, we do
keep happening, but really that seems very significant as far as starting you on this particular journey of where you're at now. Yeah, 12 years old.
Isn't it amazing to me too, is that the power that we have to inspire young girls too in their lives, as women, that it can start very early on.
Then go ahead, keep going.
So the journey, that was this view, but then I took a very, very long journey to, it evolved. There wasn't anything, it says, this is it, this is what I'm going to do. It didn't work that way.
You didn't get bonked on the head, and right. But what was it then that, so let me hold up. So Geri is an author as well as an advocate, and she's an advocate for coyotes, which she would say to me, Susanna, you pronounce it, Geri, please.
Coyote.
Okay, yes. And so when did you get the call to focus on this particular animal, that it was this animal that needed Geri's special passion and advocacy? How did that happen?
So after a long journeys found me to Maine, I knew that I had to come to Maine to find out what that vision was, and I did. And to make that long story short, I decided to go back to school to be a wildlife biologist. And I went to Montana, University of Montana. And at that time, wolves were coming back. And but I also learned so much about coyotes at that time. And I realized the intense suffering that this particular animal went through, but never had no one to speak for them. The wolves were having many people to speak for them. The other piece is that here in Maine, people were calling to have wolves return. And I knew that coyotes were here, but I'm saying, but coyotes there? Why? How can we ever teach people to live with wolves if we don't know how to live with the little wolf, Coyote.
And Geri, let me ask you, so Coyote, I know that you talk about how it's the cornerstone or the capstone predator. And is that part of why you chose that particular animal?
I chose it, I think, has a lot to do, part of with my own upbringing. I was a child of nine in the family, a middle child. And when you're in a family like that, and throughout you go out, and we were poor too. My sense of myself that I was no one special, that there was no attention to me, I kind of related with Coyote a great deal because of my own personal life. I had that relationship that this was a species that was so amazing that our native people revered, and yet when the white man came, we persecute them. And so I related so much with them because of my own personal life that I want to be a voice because they're so cool. The more you get to know them, they are a gift to our state.
So
And
interesting that you mentioned the Native American really treasuring them. And I know their view of Coyote as the trickster and um, a wonderful spirit that can teach, that has an animal medicine that's really good for us. But that's not how they seem to be viewed. And I can tell you, as you well know, I have friends who worry that their cats and their little dogs and their chickens are all going to be taken by coyotes. So I wonder, we talk about on the Heroine's Journey, you get your call, you decide, yes, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to help advocate for this animal. And then there are the threshold guardians, people that come forward that try to stop you and say, did you have anybody in your life that particularly said, Geri, you're nuts? Or no, you shouldn't, you're not, whatever. Did you get any pushback?
no, I never had anyone say no, but of course that's how my life was too. This was a very solo journey of mine. I didn't have a great deal of support throughout my life. So it was a very journey of finding my own self and going for it. It was more the internal ones. Who do you think you are, Geri, that you're going to make this difference? Who do you think you are? And I pushed back and says, I know who I am inside. I know who I am inside. I know who I am inside.
And I
That
can
carried
tell
me.
you, I'm sure people that were listening have heard that same voice in their heads. Who do you think you are? And this is such a big thing that you have volunteered. You're not getting paid to do this, right, Geri?
Well, actually, I'm a wildlife biologist, and a big piece of the work that I do is education. I travel all over the state of Maine, and I've created a very creative visual audio presentation that I've given all over to all kinds of people and experiences with children. And that's really been what I have used. And I do charge a very minimal amount. There are places, because education, as most women know in our culture, education is not necessarily something that's has good pay. And so there are places where I go who are my hosts, like our libraries, which I love to give. This is a place of education. They can't afford to pay me, and I won't stop because they can't. So when they can, I do.
Yes.
Otherwise, so yeah.
But really, bottom line, I think you spend a lot of time volunteering and putting this out there. And if people pay you, that's great, but that wouldn't stop you. This is your absolute passion. And so your hope is what? The goal, you'll know that you've been successful when what? That's a big question, I know.
I think the part that's valuable about that is really I really strive to create an enlightened consciousness among our people in our communities. And I tend to be very parochial in my work. So Maine is a very parochial state, and I love that. So I really strive to internal change, not external change, but internal change that transforms a person of how they see the world and how they see themselves within the world. And when we do that, we treat each other and our wild kin in a whole different way. And so, I part of it is, I think one of the things that I found is people speak to me about their response to what I have presented to them. And I've had people email me with beautiful emails of gratitude. And to me, to touch deep down in a person that changes their life, that's an amazing experience.
You really help them see things in a different way and see Coyote in a different way. And I'm reminded my dad grew up hating snakes, and he was really teaching me to hate snakes too, and for no reason. It was just he grew up hating snakes, which is probably because his parents hated snakes. Luckily, I was able to get enlightened and realize that they play an important part in our ecosystem, as do Coyote. So I know you talk about that role that Coyote plays. Can you summarize that? Why is Coyote so important to keep around?
Well, just one piece, because I really love to bring the Navajo in, who are our native peoples. And Coyote is just as much alive in their culture today as they were before the Europeans came. And I had spoken to a Navajo 2 weeks ago, and I asked him, how did the Navajo relate to Coyote? Because we're getting all kinds of information of how we should be with them. But has anybody ever asked the Navajo? And so I asked him, and it took him a while to understand, even in my European language, how to respond to me. And this is what he said. And I think this is a powerful thing that I love reaching out to. He said about Coyote, I believe that we live in a physical world and we also live in a very spiritual world. There are two levels of it. And it's the same. The native peoples believe that wild beings had spirits as well, which I asked him, how do they relate to them, to Coyote? And he stopped and he was quiet for a while. And then he said, Coyote is the messenger. When Coyote comes to you, they are there to tell you something. You have to stop and think about that in our culture. They are there to tell us something. And I think today in our culture, of so much violence to each other and to our planet Earth and to wild beings, our oceans, Coyote is the messenger, wanting to tell us something about ourselves. And I come on that level, and I guess that's the spiritual part. That's the part that's relating to the center of our humanity.
And I think what you must be saying is the message is from Coyote that the violence we as human beings turn on Coyote is the violence we're turning on each other, and we have to stop.
That's right. It's a message. That's a message, and it is very, very true. The other part, and that to me is that really spiritual part of our relationships with life on our planet, that all life is our kin, the rocks, the trees, all of that. And we're knowing that more and more of the Aboriginal knowledge we are coming to understand is really our true knowledge as humans, our deep connections of who we are as a species. But the other part about Coyote, the science part, the scientist that I am, says that Coyote is the keystone. So where coyotes are present and wolves are not, Coyote is the keystone. And you remember, everyone, when the Romans created their buildings. That's right. They created the arches, and they had nothing else but the stones. So they had to create that. And that stone at the top is the keystone.
Kept it together, kept it holding up.
Kept the whole thing together.
And if we take that out, then
Yes.
the arch crumbles. And so relating that to nature and what's happening, if we kill all the coyotes, which I think you've told me that the law in the whole country is open kill for coyotes every day. There isn't a particular hunting season. Anybody can kill a coyote anytime. And if that happens and they're wiped out, then the arch, maybe we get too many mice, too many deer with Lyme disease, it gets out of balance, is your message.
And so the keystone plays that really, really important role. The only thing is, and some sociologists and historians say this often too, is that each of us who are born right now in these generations, we don't know what we've missed because it's gone. And so what do we want to pass down to our children that is rich, where we haven't taken away? And we don't know what we are doing to the earth or to Coyote when we allow such violence to our fellow being. What does it say about ourselves that we allow this,
So I know I tell you all the time when I see you that I so admire and respect your heroic courage to stand up for this maligned animal and to go to our state representatives and senators and try to get bills passed that will change the, kill coyotes whenever you want rule. And it really is, how hard is that for you, Geri? Is that something because of your great passion that it isn't that hard, or is it hard every time that you have to forge into maybe a committee room where everybody's or most of them are people that would hunt coyotes? What's that like for you?
Well, from the very beginning, every time I give a talk and travel in Maine, I've traveled all as far as Fort Kent, stayed overnight for weeks in places. Every time I stand in front of a group of 70 people, 85, I do not know who my audiences are. And I've had men stand up and spew out hate in front of everybody. And how do I respond? So every time I stand up, I have to bring forth my very spiritual courage. And I do that. What we're doing now is an aspect of that, of speaking laws to protect our coyotes here in Maine. And that's something that you just don't go in front of the legislature and let's do this. What we do is we bring the people of Maine together, the power in a democracy. There is great power that we have, and learning it all over again to use our power, but also to be a leader in a democracy, not politics, but a person in our democracy who inspires others to use the freedom that they have and the rights they have to live in a democracy, to use their voice for whomever.
And you're doing that now. You are coordinating a group of people who I know you call ambassadors, who are going to share your message, because you're only one person and it's pretty hard to keep traveling all over and spread that word. So, Geri, as I know we could talk about this for a while, but I want to just make sure that I ask you if there's a person listening to this and they say, oh, I want to be part of this, I want to help her, I want to let her know that I support her, then they go to your website, I know, which is coyotelivesinmaine.org. And I will say this because I bet you won't say it, that there's a donate button on there that people can donate to help you get what you need so that you can travel and go and speak to people and spread the message. And of course, this is a great book, I Am Coyote, that Geri has written about a young female coyote, which Geri reminds me is her story is really the heroine's journey. Just right there. Yes, she can, animals can have it too. It's wonderful. How else can people support you?
Well, to me, the biggest support is that people use their own talents. I have found, and I work with a great deal of women, it just always seems that the women are coming forward. So in this group of ambassadors, and they really have self-selected themselves, it is just a thrill for me because these are people who've gone beyond their own species in their caring. They've gone way beyond, this to step beyond. So it's not only about issues for your own species, but going beyond that. It's so pure in what they're doing. And what I love about it, and I try to be consistent in what we're doing a really strong and powerful enlightened consciousness preparation for the bill. So it's not like, here's the bill. Well, if we do that, it'll fail. But we need to have an enlightened consciousness of our people. And so I'm seeing these amazing women then come up with all these creative, joyful ideas of how can we reach out to our fellow Mainers, and start creating this whole manner of relationships, and then bringing our children and our teenagers and our young people. We really want to do that too, to show their own power that they have. And when you use your creativity, whatever form it is, for another, you're going into your power place. And what happens is, if you're doing it for a being who has no voice whatsoever, like Coyote, then you've found your power, and then you have that power in all aspects of your life, not just, that one. So, and I see that with these beautiful people that I'm working with. It's a joy, and it's a gift back to them. It's wonderful.
Back to your point that when you talk about the power, we are all connected to every tree, every flower, every bird, every living being. And we have great influence in that connection. So I wonder, Geri, what would you want to leave women with? And again, your point that so often it's women who step forward, and I don't know if we have a closer connection to Mother Earth or something. I don't know. And I don't want to claim that. But what would you, because mostly women listen to these interviews, what would you want to leave them with?
I think one thing, a question, something that is something from my life and all, is the concept of being a mentor. This is one of them. And there are many things I can leave you with, but things that have really touched my life and I continue to do now is I never had a mentor in my life. Geri's walking this journey and going, okay, well, maybe it's this way. Oh, no. And then another day. And then I finally found a mentor in my life when I went to the University of Montana. An amazing mentor who knew me better than I knew myself, who saw my soul, who knew exactly this woman is going to do amazing things. And he would say that to me, you are going to do amazing things for conservation. And his immense support to me during that time and after that, and continues, has had a very strong effect on my life. And so I decided too, that when young people come to me and I can see that fire wanting to be lit in them, that I would be their mentor too. Because I know what it's like not to have a mentor. And I know what it's like to have one. And I think our young people and young women in the culture that we live in, having a mentor who they can go to, be inspired by, believe in them. And I've had this experience with some young women, And it's just a joy to me to see them flower.
Yes, that's a wonderful thing to leave people with, because you, particularly if you're walking alone and you're not knowing which way, which of course is why I talk about the heroine's journey, because it does lay out a map and milestones for you, but a mentor, somebody who believes in you, that's really, and helps you learn how to believe in yourself, which obviously, Geri, you would not have come this far and made such a difference if you didn't believe in yourself. So I have to let you go, and I want to thank you so much for spending this time with us and sharing your heroine's journey story. And I know we go on many, and I know you're still on this one. That we're not gonna, and I tell people there's twists and turns on the journey, and people rise up to help you, and people rise up to be detractors. Sometimes you have to meet dragons that block your way, but you're making it through, Geri. You're going through the dark places and coming out and helping us all come out into the light. So thank you.
May I share one last thing?
One last thing.
Thank you. Is that you know that Beethoven was writing his music on his deathbed. And if any of you know Dala Vipkar, who is our renowned, most beautiful artist here in Maine, she was 99 going on 100. She was painting the day she died. And I shall be doing what I am doing until it's time to go. How else to live?
Okay, and that's going to be a long time from now, Geri. So we'll be doing another interview with an update 20 years from now. So don't you forget it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, and thanks to everyone for watching.